All right. Let's see if this works. I can't believe that happened.
I think it's better than...
I know. All right. Well, yay.
So,
All right, I'm back.
we were talking about notes, right?
Yeah, a little bit. I was just going to start, just start going into the different signs. So for those of you who are coming back online, I'm going to see if I can salvage the first part, and maybe this will be part 2.
All right.
For those of you online, what happened, I was talking about the moon, and the sun got really pissed, and it fried my phone, and it got really hot, and now I have it in the refrigerator. So the sun wants it all about the sun. Hi guys, I'm sorry about that. It was so weird. I'm talking, and then all of a sudden it said, it's too hot, emergency, and it just shut down my transmission. So gotta love the sun, gotta love the summer. We are talking about the moon today, and it's so moody. See, very typical moon. It's very moody and emotional. It's like, what do you mean? Yeah, the sun's like, you're not talking about me? I'm gonna shut you down. And the moon's like, just go with the flow. So I went next door and got Katie's phone, and my phone is cooling in the fridge. So a quick recap in case I cannot retrieve the beginning part. Just real top line. The moon rules the emotions, okay? So the moon is divine feminine. Win. Hold on, let me turn off Wi-Fi. Now that I turned off Wi-Fi, is that better? I'm so sorry, guys. This may have to turn into like an inside class if this is going to be so temperamental. The moon is the luminary of emotions. Keywords: habits, instincts, behaviors, your subconscious mind, your memories, divine femininity, domesticity, and your intuition. So it definitely reflects what you require to feel safest. And it's like when you are at your most vulnerable point at the end of the day and you're just feeling like I'm going to completely let down my guard, that's reflected by the moon. And how you nurture others and how you want to feel nurtured is reflected by the moon. It also sometimes indicates the mother, the role of the mother in your natal chart. So when the moon is in a specific sign, that will often reflect the collective mood, but it definitely reflects your innermost self, your habits, your reactions, your behaviors, because the moon reflects. So it's how we react to what's happening around us. All right. So the moon, if your moon is in Aries, which is the first sign of the zodiac wheel, it is the baby of the zodiac. So it's a fire starter. Last week I talked about the elements, and so that is a fire sign, and it's a cardinal sign. So it's a fire starter. So naturally your moon can be inclined to be volatile and emotionally impulsive. So they may decide to behave in a little rash, hurried decision without necessarily thinking things through. They tend to act first or react first, and then afterward be like, oh, maybe that was a little rash. But then they move quickly. So like even if they have like a little temper tantrum or a little angry flare up, which is typical Aries, they will also equally get over it fast. They're not grudge holders. They're like, oh, that? I moved on like ages ago about that. Not all signs are like that. Aries is. They tend to be very independent. They insist on following their own path. They don't care about what other people are doing. It's their path, even if it's right or it's wrong. And they don't like interference from other people. They're like, yep, no, I'm not interested in that. I'm doing it my way. And they like to dominate others, like people with Aries moons. Sometimes they like to dominate people emotionally. Thank you. Is it cool now?
It's colder, yeah. It's
okay,
back
good.
on. Yep.
Yeah, I just wanted, so in case
Of course.
I have another. Yeah, so, yeah. They're very instinctive and they're spontaneous, which is great about Aries, because if you think about like the Fool card in tarot, it's like here I am, I'm gonna take an adventure, and like they can just have like a little kerchief on their stick and they're ready for an adventure. So like they might be going off a cliff, but like they're ready to go, and they'll learn as they go because they're the baby. Let's see, they form judgments instantly. What's cool about Aries is they are very enthusiastic, so they're competitive too. Let's see. Oh, this was fun. This was a little fun fact. So you have to be cautioned. You can be selfish, irritable, impatient, and blunt. So I talked about being a little bit quick-tempered, impetuous. Did I post these because you're coming in late? I do post them. I just had my phone shut down due to heat. So the sun was a little jealous that I'm talking about the moon today, and it like almost set my phone on fire. So the first few minutes, I don't know if I could retrieve that or not. So I'm starting again with the moon, and I'm up to moon in Aries. But yes, I will save these. So the thing is, the Aries likes to make themselves known so that their needs are met first. They're like, but think about like a little baby. They want their needs met. But as a result of that, they also are very independent, they're direct, and they're courageous in life. So, you know, sometimes they can come off as being like a little self-absorbed, but it's just masking any insecurities that they might have. And it's like being a little overly bravado. So that's moon in Aries, if your moon's in Aries. Or if you know somebody that has a moon in Aries, it's helpful to understand how they operate. So the moon in Taurus, here's one of my friends here has a moon in Taurus. So Taurus is ruled by Venus. It's a very sensuous sign. They like material comforts. It is a earth sign, so it's like very material creature comforts, and it also is a fixed sign, so it can be stubborn. It likes to be surrounded by natural, beautiful things. So they do emotionally have a need for financial and material security in order to feel emotionally secure. Will we be open on July 4th? No, I hope to give the staff off on that day unless Dina changes her mind and decides to open for a few hours. But I'm going to visit some family, and if I had my say, everyone should celebrate and do something fun. So we're open the 3rd and we are open the 5th. So we're open 7 days a week, except certain holidays we do close. So the emotions of a moon in Taurus, the emotions do, because they're a fixed sign, because they're very material, like grounded, they do tend to be, their emotions tend to be steady and placid, which is even tempered and calm and tranquil and like level keeled. They use a lot of common sense in their decisioning, and they like to focus on having comfortable domestic affairs and financial affairs, nothing too exciting, they're risk averse. They like things, like they love beautiful, nice things around them. It helps make them feel comfortable and safe. They don't normally initiate projects. They like to be steadfast and persistent in completing projects. And then they won't start a new project until the other project is over, usually. They like other people to start projects, and then they'll like get on board and be happy about that. So this moon does attract wealth and all the beautiful good things in life. So again, it is ruled by Venus. So Venus is love, money, beauty, aesthetically like luxurious things. So that's where the sensuous comes. So Taurus moons, they especially love good food. They like luxury brands. They like material comforts. They like a stable domestic life. They like having a partner. They like routine. That all provides for a good, emotionally stable moon in Taurus. So remember how I was talking about it? Oh, well, that was the first iteration. If the moon is in like a good supported position and uninterrupted, then it's all those things. If the moon is being bothered by another planet, like there's a position of distress, or if it's afflicted, so Taurus moons can sometimes, like talk about the shadow side of us, sometimes they can be very unwilling to change because they're stubborn, because it's a fixed sign. And if you think about a bull digging in his heels, sometimes you have to caution that you don't like get too fixed in your ways. So sometimes they don't like to change their emotional attitudes. And sometimes another risk of that is there can be a tendency for laziness and an excess attachment to material comforts. So sometimes you need to get out of that comfort zone. You can't just stay in your living room surrounded by all of your things in life. You have to get out and like push yourself outside of your comfort zone. So let's see. You yearn for security, emotional and material things, and you do everything to achieve it. You're stable, you're stubborn, you're very cautious about change. Change makes you feel very uncomfortable. Yes? Yeah. So, I mean, the positive sides of Taurus, they're so trustworthy, they're so congenial, they're so charming, they tend to be very attractive and warm and faithful and loyal. So it really is all about like the pleasures, the creature comforts of predictability and security. So that is the moon in Taurus. All right, so the moon in Gemini, very different energy. Gemini is the twins, and it is ruled by the air signs, which is all about thought and communication. So it's the duality of Gemini. So the emotional nature that is associated with the moon in Gemini, sometimes vacillating, sometimes fluctuating. So they like to see different options. If you think about a mutable air sign, so it's all about the mind and communication, but mutable is like go with the flow. They like a wide variety, but not too deep. If it goes too deep, you lose their attention span. It's like a little hummingbird. They go on to the next. So, they tend to be very quick-witted, very intellectual and resourceful because they're all about the mind. They overthink things and like they're always thinking. They're always taking in new perspectives and they're like, well, what about this? What about this? So they need to be stimulated. Sometimes Geminis, moons and Geminis especially, will talk incessantly. Sometimes it's annoying to other people. They don't do it on purpose. It's just their nature. So they rationalize their emotions. Sometimes they even lose sight of like what they really feel because they're like, well, what about this? What about this? And what about this? So like they tend to let their mentality overrule the actual like water signs are ruled by emotion. The moon is ruled by emotion. But Geminis as an air sign can sometimes use their mentality to override their decisioning. Sometimes they could be restless. They often have different variety or changes in residency. They may enjoy a lot of short journeys. They may be nervous or fidgety because of that, constant desire for more input. One of the cautions is beware of spreading yourself too thin because you have tons of ideas and you want to do all different things, but you might not have the capacity to do all of that. Again, the moon is how you react to the world. You can't react to everything. You have to be selective with the things that you do. So, when a moon in Gemini is in a really good position, is they can be extraordinarily resourceful and they can develop some really solid plans and solutions to any type of project or problem. But the opposite of that is if it's in distress, it can cause indecision, superficiality, and confusion. Just because that's like, there's a term that I say, you can't boil the ocean. So what that means is like, you can't possibly take on everything all at once. You have to start with like small bite-sized bits and go from there. So Geminis need to learn that balancing act. So one of the things, because they're an air sign, which is the thoughts and intelligence, sometimes they can be very witty and intelligent, but sometimes they can come off as being like glib or sarcastic. So be careful, or superficial, like be careful of that. And yeah, I talked about being somewhat nervous or high-strung, and sometimes the mental approach will override the heart. Oh, this was interesting. diversion is a tactic that they use often as part of their strategy. So if there's hard times or hard decisions or stressful situations, they'll just be like, oh, look over there. Like, they'll just totally divert. So that will last for like a short term, but you can't live life that way. So, you know, you have to be careful of that moon in Gemini. But, you know, one thing that is good or bad, Gemini's always, they don't have a problem moving forward. When they sense it's time to move on, they're like, okay, it's time to move on. They won't like dwell there. And I think that's good, because there's some signs that just get like hung up and never leave that place. So, all right, moon in Cancer. What time is it? 5 o'clock. So that earlier distraction derailed my timing. So the moon in Cancer. So Cancer is ruled by the moon. So it is in its natural habitat. It is all about emotions. So no matter what's going on, Cancer will always be feeling their emotions. That's why they're weepy. That's why they're intuitive. That's why they're super sensitive. They possess all the same traits as the moon. So depth, intensity of emotions. They tend to have strong ties to their mother. Remember, the moon reflects the mother. So family and home are extraordinarily important to them. Moon in Cancer may be very good home cooks and homemakers and parents. So domestic security and marriage are very important for their emotional well-being. It's like when they're happiest. And again, the moon reflects what makes you feel safest. So sometimes, like the moon in Cancer are very highly sensitive and intuitive. One of the things that you have to be careful of, because you're so intuitive and because you're so sensitive, you have to be extra cautious not to project and overthink, because I could be thinking like, oh, well, you're thinking these things about me. And meanwhile, you just totally fabricate a story in your life that's not true. So you have to be careful, because you can imagine slights from other people that don't really exist because you're so sensitive. Be careful of that. So, and then if they do that, sometimes there's a tendency to like withdraw and brood on it, because think about a crab. If a crab feels unsafe, it withdraws and like puts out its claws. It's crabby and it snaps, and then it'll withdraw and go within, and then it'll have to like recoup. So it's like a whole cycle of Cancer and the moon. So it's just a cautionary tale. So we all have our moments. So if the moon is distressed, there may be an excessive emotional instability or a tendency to smother children too much, like too much helicopter parenting, that they try to like emotionally dominate the kids. So it's coming from a place of love, but let them live, let them develop. So you got to be careful of that. But let's see. The moon rules the crab, Cancer, so you are a lunar person. You're moody, you're receptive, sentimental, very vulnerable, and extremely aware of the flux of emotions. So you're caring and protective, and you're a kind person, but sometimes you have a hard time letting go. Unlike Gemini, that's like, you know what, I've had enough, I'm moving on. Cancer will like hold on. So this I thought was interesting. It says, as a child, sometimes moon and Cancers were extraordinarily responsive to your mother because of that connection. So when you have kids, you're also likely to be an exceptionally loving, but sometimes overindulgent parent or over-involved parent. So, I mean, it's coming from a place of love. They're very kind, loving people. But, you know, every sign, we have things to keep in check. So this next one is my sign, my moon sign, my moon in Leo. As I was going through and taking all my notes, I was like, yes, I totally relate to this. So, all right. A Leo moon adds warmth, dazzle, and exuberance to any sun sign. Generous, devoted, and lively. Remember, Leo is ruled by the sun, so it's like larger than life, and like, so yes, warm, generous, devoted, lively. You love to laugh, and you're gifted with a certain level of presence and joie de vivre. So it's like you have this chemistry of attraction that people are drawn to you. So with that, you have to be careful, because the moon is your emotions, so you can be very easily hurt too. So if you feel like you're ignored, and I started laughing at that, because if I feel like I'm being ignored or not appreciated, you might as well just stab me in the heart. But I don't do things for other people because I want any type of like praise. I do it because I genuinely am coming from a place of service and caring and contribution. Mm-hmm. But if my love language, if I feel like I'm not being seen, stick a knife in me. I'm done. Like it's very funny. So they're usually very upbeat and confident, and you love to perform and the world responds. So again, it's the relationship between you and the universe. And Leo is ruled by the sun. So it's that relationship and dichotomy between the sun and the moon. So when you're feeling downhearted or insecure, you cover up your doubts by being overly dramatic. So emotional fireworks. And you might throw a temper tantrum or a fit. It's true. It's very dramatic. It's very dramatic. So if you have any children with the moon in Leo, I am a moon in Leo, and I can attest it is true. I'm not proud of it, but... So, this is interesting insight that I learned, this fun fact. You picked up this dramatic pattern from your mother, who may also be a drama queen. She taught you to seek recognition, and she gave you confidence to set ambitious goals. So it's just because, you know, you're really caring, you're really giving it your all, and you personify it because Leo is the sun, which is associated with your sense of self. So if you're feeling like you're giving it your all and you're confidently putting it out to the world, if it's not being appreciated, you're like, I gave it to my all. So it's very dramatic. These people need romance and affection in their life. They're hardwired to it. If they don't get it, they feel like they're starving. They are emotionally proud. They have a flair for dramatics, and they will often seek the spotlight. So they can be very actors. You know, they're predestined to be thespians. They like children. They like parties. They like art. Sometimes they can be self-centered, and they can definitely be stubborn. It is a fire sign, which is associated with passion, but it is a fixed fire sign. So it's stubborn. In its shadow side, it can be unmoving and stubborn. They can act like prima donnas and dramatize their feelings. Yeah, so I mean, like a Leo, it's like, it's enough about me. What do you think about me? You know, it's not. They don't
shine.
They don't mean it. They don't mean it.
That's kind of like why, because Leo's planet or celestial body is the sun.
Yeah.
Even if it's a Leo moon, I think it's still gonna have that ego. It's an ego. It's a Leo.
Yeah.
Leos are always gonna have egos. I thought Aries had ego. Leo.
Yeah, but it's not literally your mom with your Leo moon. I know. So once you understand where mom's coming from, it's coming from a place of love. It's not trying to be like, it's all about me. It's like, they want to be of service. They want to be appreciated. They want to be loved. They want to be emotionally stable as part of the pride and feel valued. Make sense?
Yep.
All right.
Very practical,
So,
no matter what.
there you go. Oh, this is true too. They want their kids to be well groomed, and they want their homes to be show places of beauty and art. So that I can definitely attest to. You know, it's like a matter of pride. You take pride in where you live, and your children are your offspring, and your home is your place, and you just want everything to just be beautiful. So that's Moon in Leo. Okay, Moon in Virgo, very different energy. Very, very different energy. So it's an earth sign, and it's mutable. So again, malleable, go with the flow, problem solver. The brain is like a computer that they can take all these tenets of input and then calculate what is the optimal solution. So the Moon in Virgo indicates a very exacting, hardworking, and practical nature. So there is a great regard for neatness and cleanliness in personal hygiene and your housekeeping. They are very particular and regimented about their food and their diet. They're concerned about their health. So they will weigh if a food tastes good, but more importantly, or just as importantly, they'll be like, is this healthy for me? Is this like, they treat their body like a machine, just like they treat all scenarios like as a calculation. What is optimal? So they can be very good cooks, but the health is just as important as taste. So they are the opposite of Leo. They tend to be shy and reserved. They don't want to be in the spotlight. They like to be working quietly in the background, and that makes them feel safe and secure. And if they feel insecure, they will dive deeper into work. It's a distractionary tactic, but it makes them feel safe. They wish to serve. They are very detail oriented. It can come off as being very sterile. So I think with the moon ruling emotions, this is kind of a hard sign out of all of the signs. I think to have your moon in Virgo, it can be very hard because it tends to be very sterile. Like they don't feel comfortable asking personal questions. They'll ask questions as it relates to like a matter at hand, but they don't like, they're like, I don't, it's not necessary. I'm just going to go over here. So, you know, as it relates to practical affairs. So if your moon is afflicted, so this is something you have to be careful of. You can dwell too much on those details and really get like hung up there. And they can tend to be very critical, hypercritical, unnecessarily critical. But Virgo tends to be the hardest critic of their own selves. So it's coming from a place of internalizing, and then they project. So just keep that in mind, that perfectionism is something that you have to watch out for because it can blind them to the bigger picture. So don't get too caught up in the details, Moon and Virgo. So they tend to be very emotionally timid and unobtrusive. They would rather repress their emotions than to articulate them. It's like they do not like to confront difficult issues, to emotional issues. It's just not neat. It's outside of their comfort. So they like to distract themselves. They're very industrious. They're very practical. They can be hard to please. They could be fussy. And it's all about like, they're not afraid of taking responsibility and accountability. So they value efficiency and organization. It makes them feel safe and secure. Remember, the moon is what you require to feel safe and secure. So like I know with my moon being in Leo, when I try to show people my appreciation and my nurturance or my caring for them, I tell them how much they are valued. I tell them how much I appreciate them. That's my love language. But I also need to receive that. So when you're learning about these different signs, keep that in mind, because you can, if you know that your spouse has the moon in Aries, when he's getting a little hot, you could be like, he's going to get over that in a minute. I'm just going to give him a beat. Like it helps with the interpersonal communication and understanding of where they're coming from and how they're expressing themselves to you, even if that's different from how you receive it. Okay. So the moon in Libra is the next one. So Libra is ruled by Venus. Taurus and Libra are ruled by Venus. So you're gracious, you're romantic, you're artistic. You shun vulgarity. You don't like that. It's distasteful. You value courtesy and elegance. You try to convey your feelings in a very calm, balanced, diplomatic way. And peace ultimately is essential to you, and you will do anything to maintain that balance and peace. And so this was interesting. As a child, you learn to maintain your appearances. Even if you were just being abused or if there was some drama, like you still smiled and you're like, everything's great. So that type of behavior, that even keel behavior, earns you praise. So now they've come to expect that of you, that you're just like even tempered as a moon in Libra. But you're not a robot and you're not like a piece of art. You are a real living, emoting human being. So everybody has emotions. Let's see, what else? Yeah, as an adult, you can seem unflappable. So love and relationships are fundamental to your overall well-being. So Libra is the sign of partnership. It's you plus another. It is the scales. It is balance. It's you plus other. So if you are not in a relationship, oftentimes your moon in Libra, you may feel like there's a void or something's missing if you are not in partnership. And if you are in a partnership, you might not be able to ever imagine your life without being in this partnership. And then it can scare you, the idea of being alone. So just be careful of that, because you're fine in your own self. No matter what status you are as you plus one other, you are fine in your own self. So you have to find that wholeness and duality within yourself. But it does make you feel safe and secure when you are in partnership. You do not like confrontation. You may tend to gloss over problems because you don't want confrontation. You really desire peace and harmony of all things. Libras, let's see. Yeah, they can repress things like that they find distasteful. They'll just like shove it down, so be careful of that. There is definitely a charm and an elegance in their appearance as well as in their mannerisms. Like, they definitely are gracious, and they love to make everyone around them feel welcome and safe and secure. That's what they're very talented at. Okay, so you have to be careful for codependency as a risk for Libras, because they can, at their shadow side, be people pleasers and also be overly influenced by other people. It might not be in your own best interest, Libra, so don't just give in to what other people say you should be doing, okay? All right, Moon and Scorpio. So they are very passionate, they are easily injured, and they are very complicated. Scorpio has many facets. Hi. All right, well, I'm live streaming, so.
Oh, you are?
I am.
Kiss you?
Yes, give me a hug and a kiss.
I love you.
I love you too. Say hi to everybody now. This is Tori Franco. She was doing readings for us today. And thank you for spending the day with us.
Thank you.
All right.
I love you.
I love you too.
Okay.
We'll see you soon. All right. So, the Moon in Scorpio. Strong. Biased emotion, which is based on their willful desire. Scorpios can be very calculated to achieve what their goals are. And they are an emotional sign. They are water-based, but they're a fixed sign. So it's still water. So their emotions, you're a Scorpio moon here. Okay, my son is a Scorpio moon. They feel so deeply. So think about a lake. It looks perfectly calm on top, but there may be currents, there may be tides, there may be hidden treasures, there may be battles of turtles down below, and you don't know anything that's going on under the surface. You know, like, think about a duck. Things look smooth as the duck is traveling on top of the surface, but their little feet are going like this, and it could be like chaos and pandemonium, and you don't even know. So they have a tendency to take personal affairs very, very seriously, which can lead to possessiveness and extreme jealousy. So when it's carried to the extreme, natives, which are Moon and Scorpio, can hold grudges and can also plot and plan revenge at an opportune time, which may be a long time from now. They have very long memories, so they do not forget when somebody personally affronts them. Gotta lighten up a little, Moon and Scorpios, because not everything is plotting and planning and directed at you. You need to know that, okay? Because you are the deepest feeling sign, and not everything is against you, okay? There is an inclination towards brooding and revenge as a serious character defect associated with this moon sign. It should be avoided at all costs. I do not recommend it because it's not going to end well. Okay, so let's see. All right. Scorpios can make great sacrifices to achieve a worthwhile objective. So they feel deeply and with great passion and with great motivation. I love Scorpios because it's all about birth, death, rebirth, and taking it to new levels. So when one phase ends, how do we learn from that and take it to the next level of birth and rebirth? So if you think about your emotions, how can you take those principles of Scorpio and take it to the elevated state of Scorpio, of how do we learn the lesson and move on? Don't get stuck in the mire and the muck. You have to think about the lotus that anchors in the crappy mud at the bottom of the lake, and then the beautiful lotus flower emerges through the surface and shines pristine white, you know? So they're very willful, they're very intense. You have an innate tendency to be occasionally self-destructive, so be careful of that. The Moon and Scorpios are very, very hidden, and protective, they don't reveal the depth of their emotions. So you try to keep them hidden at all costs. So you have to be careful as you do that not to manipulate, because it's all about protection. Scorpios are all about protection, but keep in mind, not everybody's out to hurt you. You have to use discernment and keep your circle, your sphere of influence, you know, for your emotional security. Know who you can trust and who you can make disclosures to in a safe manner. Okay? But there needs to be some sort of outlet. So, covering up your emotions is something you learned in your childhood. So, you know, oftentimes you were afraid of abandonment or rejection, or you were very acutely aware of like any subtle dynamics in the family that was going on. So as a result, your silence is a form of protection and hiding. So similar to like the duck analogy that I was talking about. So it may seem cool on the surface, but there may be turmoil below. So like have outlets that are healthy that you can express in a safe manner, and it'll benefit you, because Scorpios are awesome, and it is a water sign, so it is all about the emotions. So when you learn the lesson and you evolve, it's masterful and beautiful. So elevate to the eagle and the phoenix. All right, Moon in Sagittarius. Sagittarius is higher learning and adventure and expansion of the mind. So Ken, I'm interested if that resonates with you. Ken Hope. And that's very helpful, especially as like I interact with my son, and he gets very dramatic and like deep and broody, and I'm like, okay, this is like, you need a minute, Moon in Scorpio. It's helpful. All right, so Moon in Sagittarius. Moon in Sagittarius is all about like expansion and higher learning and travel and learning new cultures. So your moon, you tend to be very philosophical, outspoken, uninhibited, overall very well intended. So it's never coming from a place of like malice. It's always like, sometimes you could be too naive or too idealistic that it's like, yeah, there's no way. Everybody else is like, yeah, no, and you're like, let's go. So keep it based in reality. Your optimism definitely runs deep. You tend to be a higher threshold of risk than most other people. So, you know, you can be very idealistic, and you see the best in humanity, and you want to see the best in humanity, even though you know people are not always going to do the right thing. You put faith in them that they are, and you're like, it's going to be okay. We're going to do this. So intellectually and emotionally, you cherish your independence above all else. So, you know, lengthy relationship discussions can definitely make you squirm. You don't want to talk a lot about it. You know, Sagittarius is a fire sign, so you don't need to like talk about your feelings. You're like, let's just get out there and go and like do something fun. So you're definitely more comfortable by taking action instead of like analysis, and you don't want that. You're like, yeah, let's move on. So that can come off as being self-righteous and sometimes hurtful, but then typical Sagittarius will like tend to justify their misdeeds and be like, yeah, well, that's okay. It's not a mean thing, it's just how they operate. So, you know, people do sense that like you're not trying to hurt them. So you do always tend to convey enthusiasm instead of like pain. You're not a broody person. You like to like just focus on like, okay, what can we do now? That happened, and how can we move forward from here, and what's the next positive step that we can take? And if there's over the top emotional displays, that's not for you. You're like, yep, we're just gonna move over here now and do the next thing. So that's Moon in Sag. Moon in Capricorn is an earth sign, and it's a cardinal earth sign. So the cardinal signs are like the starters. It's the beginning of the season. So it's an earth sign. You like the material, logistics of details, and like putting things into motion. So the mood of the moon in Capricorn is you tend to be steady, reserved, self-reliant, and ambitious, as well as well-disciplined. So you've been serious ever since you were small. Like they just tend to have like a very serious demeanor because it makes them feel happy and safe to be like productive. That's the nature of Capricorn. Very realistic. You know your strengths and then you also know your limitations, and that is fine because that's just the way it goes. So like you're like, yes, that's fine. I can own that. And these are my strengths and these are not. So how do I find people to complement what I'm not strong at? You have to be careful because sometimes there can be a little power complex in you. And sometimes you have trouble just being happy, just to be happy. So you may try to like compensate by achieving your own ambitions, sometimes at the expense of others. So like mindfulness practices and appreciation for what you have in the here and now is an important lesson because it's not always about like what next. Like Capricorn, I like to say it's like the billy goat that sets its goal at the top of the mountain. If anything on its path up is not aligned, they're not interested. They're like, nope. But like, how do we take a look around and say, I can appreciate where I am now? That's part of the work that Moon and Capricorn have to do. So you have terrific self-control and determination, and you feel safest when success, you know, by whatever measures, that brings you comfort and security. So you are definitely emotionally reserved and self-conscious. So if somebody comes up to you with an overly melodramatic outburst or display, they're like a trapped animal. They would rather gnaw off their arm than to stay trapped in that position to like escape. Like I have a friend that's Capricorn, and there's situations where somebody's like crying, they're like, and she goes, oh my God, like I was horrified. I wanted to die. Like for that person, they just do not do that. That is not, they can't stand it because they have such reserve and self-control to witness other people. They don't know what to do with themselves. That is not a good way to communicate with the Moon and Capricorn. Like if you want to get your point across, be put together and reserved and matter of fact, and like they will appreciate that all day long. Once the waterworks start or the dramatics, like you've lost them and they will want to vomit in another room. It's true. So Moon and Capricorn, you feel more grounded, powerful, and peaceful when you have a position of authority and that you can take control. It makes you feel safe and in control. So somebody has to be in control, you figure it should be you. So be careful that you're not like a know-it-all boss, but it's one of your strengths that you are a leader. You like that, Monica? It's true. It's true. I've witnessed it so many times, so it's interesting to like read about these notes because to see it display in real life. Once you start applying it to people you know, it's really fun. This is when astrology is fun. Okay, Moon in Aquarius. I have two more. Moon in Aquarius. How am I doing time? 2 minutes. Okay, I'll be quick. Moon in Aquarius. So this is an air sign. It's fixed air. So think about outer space. Okay, it's a big, broad universe, collective consciousness on behalf of humanity. So in your mind's eye, you are out to improve the world. You have progressive instincts and sympathy for others. You literally think that you can alter the lives for the better, and you can. You have a gift for friendship. So now here's the thing. Being an air sign, you're thinking, okay, Monica's a Moon in Aquarius. So being that you're an air sign, which rules your thoughts and your communication, you have an antipathy for intimacy. So like, you're not comfortable being so intimate because you're thinking like here and it's all thoughts. So like intimacy, you're like, I'm not comfortable here. So you are drawn to the unconventional, weirdos, the offbeat people that just dance to their own beats, the activities and the world of intellect. Like that's your comfort zone. You like that. So, this was interesting. It said, when you were young, your mom encouraged you to express your individuality and to use your intelligence. So again, air and intelligence and thought, and to express yourself because, you know, they're a little bit like aliens. So, it's true. She was less comfortable with your emotional needs. So, you in turn have grown to not be as comfortable with the emotional needs. So, you find it very like taxing and you don't see much point in delving into your emotions Instead, you pretend like your emotions aren't there, or like you don't want to indulge your emotions. You're just going to use logic and reason. So I always think about what's that? The Big Bang. Yeah. With like, what's the character's name? And he's like very like meticulous. Sheldon. And he's like, wow. You know, like I think of that as like, yes. It's very logical. It's very intellectual, and it's like, of course, like we don't have time for emotions. That's not what we're doing. We're saving the world, or we're like solving the world, and that's a moon in Aquarius. And then lastly, moon in Pisces. Pisces is the old school last sign of the zodiac wheel. So probably many past lives. Logic and reason is safe. There you go. That's perfect. That sums up that sign. So moon in Pisces, you're gentle, sentimental, sympathetic, and ultra sensitive. You are easily wounded and often shy. Sometimes you feel so much you feel hostage to your own emotions. So that can be very difficult for you to control or to conceal. Probably the same thing for the sun in Pisces, right? Like very intuitive. You're very psychic. So the moon, which is in charge of your intuition, in the sign of Pisces, it's like extra psychic.
It doesn't help that's the tarot card for Pisces.
There you go. Yeah. That's the tarot card. The moon. The moon, yes. The moon tarot card for Pisces, yes. Yeah. So you're very conscious of your vulnerabilities, and you are very, very sensitive to your hunches, to your instincts, to your fantasies, like everything. All the things, all the feels, all the hunches, all the intuitions, you're psychic. Congratulations, you're psychic. You just have to like get comfortable with that, and you will use it to your advantage in life, but like you will feel all the feels and think all the things. So you also tend to be artistically and musically talented. Here's where Pisces have to be careful. You can be gullible, you can be hopelessly unrealistic, and you can also be self-indulgent. You have trouble standing up for yourself. So you are very, very kind to other people. You're very nurturing to other people, but how do you turn and be helping and nurturing and caring to yourself? Because you can't save all the world, you also have to save yourself, okay? You can't pour from an empty cup. You have to protect yourself and have boundaries, but also pour that love onto yourself and that care. So your challenge is to be as compassionate to yourself as you are to others. So those are all of the signs, the moon signs. I know it's a lot of information. I love this because I'm always finding more fun facts. I hope it was helpful for you. Remember, the moon is a luminary. It's reflective of our environment. So it's how we like to receive nurturance and to express nurturance, and what makes us feel most safe. So while we're most vulnerable, it's like the sun is who we are at the core. Your rising is how we present. Your moon is our innermost self. So when you check your horoscopes, check all three. Those are your big three. We'll get into the other signs. I'm not sure what planet we're doing next week, but I hope this was helpful, and I wish you all a wonderful night. Okay, I'm glad you liked this. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.